Hello, everyone. Welcome to She Side Magazine's yet another amazing personality podcast interview. And today I'm really, really excited to introduce a personality whom I'm sure you will be really inspired by her journey, by her career journey. Most of us, especially women, we are afraid to take big career risk or career transitions. So sometimes most of us, when we do a particular course or get graduated in a particular degree, and from there, taking a totally different career, maybe at a later stage, could be very risky. Not many of us are ready to do that, but yes, there are a lot of people who try to do that. However, this involves a lot of hard work, perseverance, and passion, and readiness to try out all the risky things. So today I'm so delighted and glad that I have one such example or one such role model for all of us, not just women, to look at and get inspired. So what are we waiting for? Let me welcome Stephanie Chiu. She is the cover personality of July for She Site, and let's hear her journey. Welcome to Stephanie.
Thank you so much for having me.
Stephanie, let's start off. How is your day going?
So far, so good. I was up early at 8 for my first meeting of the day, but yeah, I'm excited to jump on this call and chat with you all more about my journey and all about about the career change that I've had.
Yeah. So let's get started with that. I gave a wonderful introduction about your career change. So people are thinking, oh my God, from where did she go to where? So tell us more about your career shift and what exactly was the starting point of all of that?
Mm-hmm. I would say that so to give like a bit of a background, so my major in college was chemical engineering. Wasn't something that I was really interested in doing, but I just had to pick a major before I went and decided, what I was going to study in college. And so it was during that time that I kind of figured out like I do actually want to start my own business, but I didn't know in what. And so if any of you are familiar with the like engineering degrees in college, once you start, it's basically like you're stuck there for a while. And it's really difficult to transition to a different major. And so after I finished my degree, I did get like a few different manufacturing roles, but I always found that they weren't challenging enough for me, and then I would get bored really easily. And so unfortunately, or maybe fortunately, I ended up getting like 3 different manufacturing jobs within 4 years after graduating, which tends to be unusual for a lot of people. Like most people, they're not going to get laid off or quit and then also have long unemployment gaps like myself, maybe like 5 or 10 years into their career. And so that ended up happening to me like in my, early mid 20s. A lot of financial stress, a lot of learning about myself, having to move to different cities every time I got the new job. I also ended up within those 3 unemployment periods, 2 of them, I ended up getting laid off from a job twice. And a lot of us, we tie our identities to a job or a career. And so it was really crushing when I did get laid off. So it was when I had quit my first job, I unexpectedly, it took me like 8 months to find my next job. And during that time, that's when I started to explore different opportunities, because I could already tell from my first job that manufacturing and operations just was not the right fit for me. I just always felt out of place, even when I like go into walk around on the shop floor every day. You have to wear like a uniform essentially, and that just didn't feel like me. There was not a lot of like creativity behind it as well. And I was fortunate enough where I had met somebody and he introduced me to different people who worked in tech. So that's kind of like how I got introduced into tech and kind of try to and use that as a jumping off point to figure out what I actually want to do with my life.
Excellent.
Fast
And
forward
from
now.
there, right
Mhm.
now, from a shop floor uniform hating person to
Mhm.
a tech entrepreneur right now,
Mhm.
or rather, you're career coaching a lot of people to get into a software job or a software engineering role, right? So your transition itself is very inspiring. But what is more inspiring is the kind of people you are helping and helping them to transition in this kind of a role. So, at what point you decided that you need to focus on career coaching and helping more people to get into this kind of a software role?
Yeah, that's a good question. So it was when I had gotten laid off for the second time, and I finally had the courage to mentally make that shift and tell myself like, hey, I'm gonna get that software engineer role, no matter what it takes, even have to go bag groceries. This was before the pandemic. This was like end of 2019 when I finally made that decision. And so during 2020, I spent that time just really focused on myself, just learning how to code, figuring out like what kind of projects to build, applying to jobs, interviews. And I found that it was really it was really challenging because not only was I self-taught, and even with a mentor, there's still a lot of things that I had to figure out on my own. But there was not a lot of information online that I could reference off of. Like there were a few people who had talked about, oh, these are kind of questions to expect. This is the kind of roadmap, but it was not relevant to today or today as in like 2020, since they had gotten their jobs back in 2017. And so because of that, I always told myself, like, once I get my first job, I'm going to pay it forward from what, my mentor did. And I'm going to share all this like juicy information that's not anywhere else online. I'm gonna share it for free on my Instagram. And so that's kind of like how I got started. And then after I realized that there were a lot of people who are struggling with this same issues. And I was also putting a lot of time towards it. So I figured that it could be very beneficial for me to help somebody long term. And so that's kind of like how I got started with the coaching portion of my company, which is the Road to Tech.
Excellent. I mean, that's really nice. I mean, especially when I meet entrepreneurs who have converted a personal pain into a business opportunity. That's a real case study of yours. So you personally underwent a pain of not getting any support when you wanted to launch into software, and you decided to help more and more people into that. That's really amazing. Fantastic work. So I would like to know, when you said that when you started off as into the software role, you did not have any mentor or somebody to help you with how to apply into companies and other things. So how did you land a job in one of the big IT companies as a software engineer? Tell us that roadmap.
Yeah. So my journey into getting that first role is quite different from most people because I didn't use referrals. I didn't apply online. In fact, it was actually the hiring manager who found me on LinkedIn. And so back in 2020, when I started to look for my first role, I realized that there were some things about LinkedIn that you can actually manipulate to get it to start showing your profile to the right recruiters and the right hiring managers. Because previously, my profile was very strongly geared towards a production engineer or like a operations manager type of profile. And
Yeah.
so my profile was getting shown to a lot of other folks who are in the manufacturing world, and I'm trying to get out of that. So I had to do a lot of my own sort of A/B testing and had to come up with my own hypotheses about what I should change in my LinkedIn profile so that I can actually start showing up for search results in under like words like software engineer or iOS engineer, and also start getting found by recruiters.
Mm.
Since especially in 2020, there was a period where there was a lot of layoffs, hiring freezes, and I still wanted to be able to give myself a chance to get in front of somebody. And when you get directly reached out by a recruiter or hiring manager, that saves you so much time, a lot of headache.
Right.
And I was getting reached out to by large companies too, where if I had applied to them, there might have been very little chance I would have even gotten a chance to be put in front of a hiring manager or recruiter. So for
Right.
example, I was reached out to by like Amazon, Snap, PayPal, and a few other companies, DoorDash.
Mm,
So that gave me like really, really great opportunities.
mm.
And so I was able to get my first job in tech. And I always recommend people to like think outside the box. Like you don't
Exactly.
have to just go down to traditional route of applying online or relying on referrals, especially if you don't have a network, which I didn't besides like my one mentor. So that's why I decided to go down this more unique and unusual route in order to get my first job.
That's wonderful. So hacking LinkedIn is the first step to career building.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. So now that brings me to the next question, which is you said you had only one mentor, and because of which you didn't have a network. Now, the importance of network in career building, and how you as a career coach is able to provide that to your mentees right now.
As a career coach, it is my duty to not only be a coach, but also a mentor.
Mm,
And for coaching, like I'm the kind of person where I will ask you like thought-provoking questions so that I'm not always providing the answer. But then the mentoring part is that if anybody has questions, I'm gonna help them out. That's just part of my own innate nature that I do want to help support somebody no matter where they are. And able to support people through my coaching program where I lead these group sessions and everybody will be able to like present on the projects that they have worked on over the last 2 weeks in these 2 week sprints. And from there, I'm able to not only um, maybe like choose one of the coding bugs that someone got stuck on and then show others within the group how would I solve this problem as an engineer. I'm trying to like teach people how to think because I can't provide them like all the answers. Eventually they need to go off on their own. That's like how I'm able to support people.
So now that brings me to, I'm more interested to learn about your coaching per se. Imagine if I come, I don't know anything about software engineering. How will you start coaching me? How will you help me learn to code?
Yeah, yeah. So I always recommend people to start off with something free
Mhm.
or low cost. Low
Okay.
cost would be from like udemy.com,
Mhm.
UDEMY. There's a lot of really great courses on there. Just pick like the top rated one.
Mhm.
And so that's how I always recommend people to start off if they don't know how to code. And if someone was to actually want to get a full-time job, then I would tell them, hey, you only need to go through about 20-25% of any course.
Mhm.
You have the foundational skills of learning how to code and also the language itself. And then now you're ready to start building your projects. And then where I am able to come in and coach and mentor somebody, or someone wants to join a program, is once they start building out the projects of their own.
Mhm.
Because someone can learn a lot more by building out a project and basically testing out what they had learned through tutorials and courses. Yeah. And then so that's where we can get started. And then, I always say that I bridge the gap between what boot camps stop at, which is like boot camps purely just teach you how to code. And then I take it to the next level where teaching you like, oh yeah, this is how you build your own project. And then this is how you can understand LinkedIn optimization and your resume from a career changer's point of view.
Mhm.
And then of course, like help them on interviews and salary negotiations and everything beyond that.
So again, as I said, I don't know anything about software engineering or coding. So how will you start off to identify, or which is the language should I start learning? Do you help with that? And how do you identify whether I have the aptitude towards this?
If someone's an entrepreneur, like that's their nature, but they want to learn how to code, I would tell them like, hey, yeah, it would be beneficial for you to learn the basics of something. Let's say like every company has a website. So it could be beneficial for you to learn a little bit of JavaScript, HTML, CSS, just like the basics about how to just build a website. Not necessarily for yourself, but just so once you hire contractors or you hire software engineers, they don't screw you over, was to want to actually make a career out of it. What I usually do is I tell them like, take a look into your own life and figure out like what you're personally interested in. Do you actually want to build websites for a living? Would you actually be more interested in AR and VR? Or would it be mobile app development? And so rather than telling somebody, which is very common amongst other like software engineers, career coaches, they would say like, oh, just start off with JavaScript or Python. I take a different approach and I tell them like, what are you interested in? Start learning that, just, Google or just YouTube, some tutorials, start getting a feel for it. And then you will quickly realize that maybe this is for me, this is not for me.
What is the current scenario in hiring among big companies or even small companies? Does graduation or degree matter, or are they only looking at, let's say, iOS development? Okay, I'll hire you. How does that work? How does the recruitment scenario pan out?
Yeah, I think oh, first of all, it's been a very interesting year
Mm.
because there was a lot of, layoffs that we start off with back in January, a lot of hiring freezes. I would say like in general, recruiters and hiring managers, they want to see that someone can bring value to the company. This is true for like any industry, any company. But then for something like software engineering, it's a little bit different because like how are you going to show value? Well, you can show it through by building out personal projects. I
Mm.
usually call them like passion projects because it helps you stand out more. You tend to put a lot more effort into it. Or client projects. They could be paid or they could be free, you
Mm.
know? And so that's how you start like kind of building your own sort of like reputation and how you can stand out. What in my experience, from working with over 100 clients over the last 2 years, a lot of people who have gone through boot camps,
Mhm.
they come to me
Mm.
like several months later or up to a year later. And then I tend to hear the same story over and over again. Like they tried applying their own jobs because, I finished boot camp and the boot camp promised that they'll get a job, but then they find out that they are not able to. And then when I take a look at their resume and what the kind of projects they built, I realized that the boot camps are not really focused on helping someone with their resume and their LinkedIn. They just tell people to apply to literally 50 jobs a day, and that's how they're able to get a job.
Yeah.
Um, but it has to be like more strategic than that. And so that's why I really do focus on the fact that you don't necessarily need a certificate or a degree in order to get into software engineering. The internships that you have, did you have any like apprenticeships? You're still having to show that you have value beyond the certificate.
Exactly.
Mhm.
That's fascinating. The role of portfolio building and getting an internship and actually showcasing your work done. I think that makes a lot of difference compared to any paper degree.
Oh yeah, 100%.
Many people do not know how to highlight that also. So coming back to your earlier suggestion of hacking the LinkedIn, you need to actually showcase your portfolio, your work done, your everything on your LinkedIn profile, because that makes the hiring manager take a look at you and then contact this side. Right.
Yeah, the best way to understand LinkedIn optimization is actually understand it from the recruiter's point of view first.
Right.
Because, for example, a lot of people don't realize that recruiters and hiring managers, they don't use the same LinkedIn that you and I use. They
Mhm.
use a whole different platform called LinkedIn Recruiter.
Mhm.
So if you were to go into, you can't actually log into LinkedIn Recruiter. I believe that's like a paid platform that
Yeah.
had to be a company or something like that, right? And so even while like what I did for myself, I was like, LinkedIn Recruiter, let me go on Google and see if I can find screenshots of what LinkedIn Recruiter looks like. And so that's kind of how I started learning about what do recruiters see, how does the LinkedIn algorithm work, because recruiters there are using a lot of keywords, but you don't necessarily know like what kind of keywords and filters they are using. But if you can understand that and then you apply it to your own profile, so you build it out and you understand like, okay, I need to write some like strategic posts about this app that I just published. And I'm gonna make sure that, in my connection request, I have, a lot of software engineers who are my same tech stack and maybe in my ideal location. I have some engineering managers and I also have some technical recruiters. Once I post this, they will see it, but let me get people to interact with the post so that more secondary connections like recruiters will also see it. And so you kind of like start building a sort of momentum. And there's all sort of like analytics that LinkedIn provides for free that some people they're not aware of. Like you can actually see what kind of keywords you're being searched for that for the week. You can see like what company these people who searched for you and clicked on your profile, where do they work? It's not just about like looking to see who stalked your profile, but more like what keywords does your profile come up for?
That's quite interesting. I want to know if somebody is starting off as a fresher in software engineering, they join, they start learning, and then uh, how much time period do you think they will need to actually land a job or maybe actually embark into a career?
Yeah, so you're saying like once they finish their learning
Right.
process and then they're
Yeah.
applying.
Mm.
Okay, so for this year, I have seen it take a lot longer for people to be able to land something. But it is still at the end of the day case by case.
Yeah.
Like I just talked to somebody who she is self-taught and she used I think she got into one of these like low cost programs online called She Codes. And so she was able to land a job and she announced it on LinkedIn yesterday. And
Mm.
she took a year. It took her 3 to 4 months to learn and then the rest of the time to look for a job. So that kind of gives you an idea like, yeah, it does take at least 6 months to land something. And for myself, this was back in during pandemic, which there was ups and downs with employment during that year for everybody. And so for me, from the time I was laid off to the time I landed another job, so my first job in tech, it took me 10 months. It's because the first 3 months I was traveling, because I was laid off. So, I had more time to travel. And then I wasn't really taking it seriously. I was not consistent in coding and learning. But once I really dialed it in, I started like finishing up projects and was able to put together my resume in 3 months after that. And then I spent the rest of the time looking for jobs. But because I understood LinkedIn, I was able to get a lot of interviews without having to be rejected all the time. From what I usually have seen, if someone were to have like a full-time job, like 8+ hours a day, and they're also trying to code, it could take at least a year because you're having to develop to like put aside only a small amount of time per day, even if you're being consistent. But then if you're like myself, where I didn't have a job and I was devoting 4 to 6 hours a day to the coding and the learning and applications, I was able to find it in less than a year.
Mm.
And then it's still case by case, right? Because some people they have more connections than you do, and so they are able to maybe they're more social, so they're able to go to more networking events and
You mentioned about getting laid off a couple of times. Like I think in you had the pain of being laid off 3 to 4 times within 4 years of your first job, and that is probably what made you to decide to embark into software engineering. Now, this year, specifically 2023, we have seen thousands of people getting laid off from software and IT. So what do you think as a tech enthusiast as well as an entrepreneur or as a career coach? Um, do you think this is a right time to enter into software field when people are actually getting laid off?
I still think that it is a great time to look for a job that you can see yourself staying in for like the next 10 years. Like if somebody is just like hopping around to like different sort of careers, then right now is probably not the best time. But what I tell like my clients and my mentees is that you want to use this time where maybe you're still at a job, even if the job is not great, but at least it provides you some sort of financial support so that you can spend, 2 hours a day on coding and learning. And that way you don't have like some sort of gap between, quitting your job that you hate and then like learning to code, because it can take a year, to land something. And I like in my program, for example, it's 6 months long, which sounds like a long time, but like I just launched my second cohort a few weeks ago. And so this program is going to last until about December. And people need to realize that, or a lot of people don't understand that the last 2 months of the year, there's very, very little hiring going on because
Yeah.
all the interviewers are on vacation.
Yeah.
So you have like another 4 months of the year to really like focus on building up those projects. And then that way you set yourself up for success in the beginning of next year, where like January is where you have all the positions, all of them are like opened up again. Companies have budgets for the new year, and then they're willing to spend on hiring. Even if someone wasn't able to get a job in software engineering or in tech over the next 4 months, at least you have still continuously worked on yourself. You didn't give up, you didn't take a break, because if you do take a break up until when the economy gets better, or tech companies are hiring again, you're going to be falling behind. Other people have already spent that time working on themselves, building up the projects, maybe even finding clients, to bring in a little bit of money. And so it's always important to continuously working on yourself, even if things are not lining up, right? The economy is not great.
Right. I 100% agree on that. During pandemic, this was the advice, or rather this, there were some people who actually did this kind of work. I mean, you yourself is a role model on that. Whereas many other people, when they lost their job and other things, they were blaming the economy and others. Whereas I think smart people, they work on themselves while the economy is low, and so that when the economy becomes better, you can actually embark into that much more easier. So it requires a lot of hard work. I do agree. Now, that brings me to the next question. Tell us more about your four-step method with your coaching methodology.
Yeah. So my methodology is that I'm a very personable person. I do try to understand people and try to get to the root of, what might be holding them back. A lot of it tends to be mental. And so I help them with like their confidence and learning to think outside the box, learning to actually start thinking like an engineer, because everybody tends to have struggle with setting concrete goals, and also they have these lofty dreams, but they don't really know how to execute. But the thing is that I always look for somebody who is very motivated and has some sort of discipline, because without that foundation, I cannot help somebody who cannot help themselves in the beginning. And then so once I can see that they're very serious about coding, they are devoting themselves to the learning process every day, then I'm like, hey, I think you're a great fit for my program. And so my program, the way it's split up is in 4 phases. So like the first phase is that we are building out like a passion project. You're learning about everything from like the planning to design, obviously like how to solve bugs, and then also how to beta test. The basis to this is that even though people are self-taught and we're just building projects for ourselves, there is a gap between learning on our own, whether it's through school, whether it's through boot camp, and then actually starting the job. And few people are actually talking about that particular gap and trying to bridge it. So I always cover, okay, this is what you would actually experience on the job. This is how you would talk to a UX UI designer. This is what a product manager does and how they might be thinking. So this is how you should be talking to them, how you can understand their language and what they do. So I always like incorporate that into the lessons. And then I have people build out their own projects, and they need to start like getting comfortable with also communicating their communication skills. So I have people, talk about, this is what I built over the last 2 weeks. This is what I want to build for the next 2 weeks. And these are the problems that I faced. This is to help build up their confidence. So even when they're in an interview, they're going to feel a lot more confident in talking out loud, talking about themselves and their projects. And then in the next phases, then it's where we will work on the like LinkedIn and resume, interviews, mock interviews, salary negotiations. So my whole methodology is really like we start from the building a solid foundation with the projects, building up those values, building up someone's confidence before moving on to all the juicy stuff, which is like, applying to jobs.
What I am inspired more again is that you are helping a lot of women to transition into this. So, can you give us some success stories, some of your, stars who actually did this transition?
So one who like she even inspires me is a recent client of mine, one of my students in my program, and she is a mother. She had to drop out of college, a CS degree actually, because she had a kid and she was having marital problems. And then she was working like different odd jobs until she discovered coding. And then she had tried it out on her own before she tried out coding boot camp and all this different stuff. And then she found my page on Instagram. So then she reached out. And once I took a look at her projects, she she was doing really, really great. She really was. And the biggest issue is that she had a lot of confidence problems in herself.
Mm. Yeah.
Like she had great projects,
Mhm.
but why is she not able to land jobs?
Yeah.
Well, a lot of it is related to the mindset that she is holding herself back sometimes, and then so she has no one else to really talk to, and you keep spiraling down, and then you end up just like not looking for a job. And so once I started like working with her, she put in the work, and I definitely pushed her to go a little outside her comfort zone.
Break
But
the
then,
limits.
yeah, I mean, like that's what I'm here for, right? And
I mean,
so,
this is a common problem, Stephanie. Even
mhm.
at She Site, you might be aware we are 100% women team, and we work towards promoting women's stories and everything. So, even within the team, many times I find that our own team members lack the confidence. Though they know the stuff, they are not able to take that leadership and lack that confidence. And that's where like people like you and me, we give them a push. You say that you have to do this, and then they end up taking up that role. So I think this is a very common global phenomenon that women have a little bit of self-esteem, or rather it's not self-esteem issues, probably confidence, low confidence and imposter syndrome when it comes to taking those leadership positions and other things.
And also maybe that we don't have a lot of female figures in our life
Exactly.
who can show us, hey, this is possible. Do you just need to like change a few things, or you just need to go out and try something different. But we don't really have someone that we can really look up to, or someone to really like tell us this is what you should try and do instead.
Yeah. I
Mhm.
mean, that's precisely why you are here. And we want to, at She Site, we want to showcase people like you to the world, telling that, see, women can do all of these things. And women, there is this, person who have been laid off so many times, who was a chemical engineer before, who had to quit her career at various points. And then right now she is, into software field, into a totally different field. Not just that she's a career coach, she has developed herself. So anybody else, all of you can also do that. So that's on a last, we are about to conclude due to time constraint. I'm more interested to know about your company and your road to tech, the firm that you run, and how can people contact you? You can share your contact details as well.
Yeah. So with Road to Tech, I provide a lot of great free advice on Instagram, on social media. And then I also run my coaching program called Hired, where I do help you be able to land interviews in a job without having to apply online or rely on referrals. And so if anybody's like interested in reaching out, you can find me on my website, www.roadtotech.com. You can also feel free to reach out to me on Instagram. at theroadtotech.com. And I'm always available by email. You just fill out the contact form on my website, and I'll get back to you as soon as I can.
That's wonderful. So, what's your vision about Road to Tech?
My mission is to really like show people that you can break into tech without having to rely on a institution, and that you would be able to do it is really possible to do it yourself.
Perfect. So anybody can become a software engineer is what you want to tell to the world, provided you show the perseverance and the willingness to do the hard work, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Right. So with that, I think with that positive note, I think a lot of people would have been inspired by your story, plus the opportunity that software field actually provides, especially for women. I think so because this is something which you can do even work from home. Balancing, your personal priorities, not just work from home. These days, I find software people are sitting in resorts and exotic places and working. so so all that possibilities is there in this career. And Stephanie, this has been wonderful to have this conversation with you and to share the journey of yours to all our readers and viewers. What is that last message that you want to give to anybody who wants to enter into the software field?
To not give up and to be consistent. Consistency in your discipline will get you anywhere in life. You don't have to be smart to break into tech. You don't have to be smart to be a software engineer, but you need to have the discipline and work hard and also work smart, so that you'll be able to achieve anything that you want.
That's perfect. You need to work smart. That's the point. Especially in this today's world of AI, and people say that AI will take away jobs. I think AI is a great opportunity, and you will also agree to that, I guess, right?
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah. AI is definitely like a wonderful tool, but if you're also interested in becoming like an AI machine learning engineer, that's like a wonderful opportunity. And we do need more women who are, in that field as well.
Perfect. With that, I think we will say bye-bye for now. And I really look forward to learning more about your works. And then I wish you all the very best in your mission of helping more and more people enter into this field. And yeah, so thank you once again for joining us in this wonderful episode of She Sides Core Personality.
Thank you so much for the opportunity.